Now talk to your pediatrician. That's the best place to start. And also have your child's hearing assessed, because babies who don't hear are not going to babble, they're not going to talk, respond, they're not going to speak the way a neurotypical child or a child that doesn't have autism would. So frequently children who have severe hearing problems can look a lot like a child with autism in the lower ages, because they just don't hear, so they don't respond to speech and language. So you need to seek a developmental evaluation or an autism evaluation. Developmental pediatricians can help you with this. If it's between birth and 3, your pediatrician can help you find an ECI facility close to where you live. And that's for the, as I said, birth to 3. When you do an evaluation through them, there'll be a speech path and developmentalists and psychologists too, I think, most of the time, aren't there? And then, you know, it might be a yes or a no, and the good thing about ECI is that it comes to your home. They come to your home and work with the children. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and developmental therapy.
And that's through the state, so
yes.
It's free. So that's a good thing about ECI, is that for there's a wait. There's always a wait, right? But ECI is free, and there are things. So let's say you went to a psychologist for this evaluation, they can then take that evaluation and get them plugged into services through ECI. So you don't have to get the evaluation to get the services, but the evaluation is a part of it as well.
Okay. If your child is between 3 and 5, the public schools nationwide have a program, a preschool program for children with disability, and here we go with alphabet soup with PPCD. Again, this is free. It's nationwide. It's in almost every public school in the nation. If the population doesn't warrant it for one particular neighborhood school, it will be in the next public neighborhood school. But even transportation is free for this program. And it's the same thing, the evaluation that covers occupational physical therapy, intelligence, speech, and language. And most of the time it's done in a round-robin situation where a lot of people are working with the child at the same time. And the program is for all children with disabilities. So most of the time you're not going to have a class that's just for children with ASD. You will have orthopedically involved children. You'll have intellectually involved.
Yeah.
I forget.
Medically.
It could be the fragile kids. It could be the orthopedic kids. It could be the kids that just aren't talking. But generally the speech-only kids, as we used to call them, came in for just a part of the day. And that's through your local school district. We also work with babies. I can't remember the last time I had a skirt on because I'm on the floor with kids all the time. And so does DePelchin, the Children's Center. Texas Children's is another facility. University of Houston at Clear Lake, they have their Center for Autism and Developmental Disabilities, and they also do a lot of applied behavioral analysis, ABA, that we'll touch on later.
So there's lots of different options to have a child evaluated no matter where you go. Because of that 1 in 68, there's not a whole lot of us who do these sorts of evaluations, and the school districts obviously have a backlog, so there is a wait. So that's why oftentimes I say, you know, if your pediatrician is saying just wait and see, let's see if his language comes along, wait and see, which is oftentimes what you hear. I say trust your gut, and if you're concerned, go ahead and get on one of these wait lists, because it's better to know than to question. At least you can have someone who can clear your mind and give you peace of mind that it's not autism, or it is. But that way you don't have to delay, because early intervention is so incredibly important for these kiddos.
And the other thing is get on the wait list. Maybe your kid is on the bubble, and maybe he's going to start talking. Cancel the appointment. There's somebody else that will be able to move up. But at least you have the appointment if it does turn out to be something, autism spectrum or another disability that a child needs to be seen.
Yeah.
Trust your gut, always trust your gut. You know your kid better than anybody else does.
Absolutely.
So yes, early intervention, and that's why. Applied behavioral analysis is a very structured system for working with children with autism. And most of the time, that's exactly what they need. Everything is broken down into the smallest possible step for a child to learn. I joke because I was mentioning it before, I've got 3 standard poodles and I do training with them. And the trainer that I'm working with now is really wonderful, and she breaks everything down into the smallest little piece of skill. And there's a friend of mine in this class who is also a speech path, and I said, hey Claire, we're doing ABA for dogs. But it's the kind of thing, that's the way a lot of us learn. Break it down. Don't tell me the whole thing, break it down. Another program is the developmental individual differences and relationship-based or floor time model, where we learn with play on the floor. Social skills intervention. The early programs will focus a lot on group language and group interaction, and so there's table time, there's center time, and a lot of modeling for how you sit at a table, how you wait for your turn to get your juice, how you wait for your turn to have it opened, if that's what you need. A lot of social skills goes on in those early programs. Speech language therapy, of course, that's what I do. Occupational therapy. I wish we had an OT at Christ, because there's so much that could be done, that needs to be done with these little kiddos. They, as we said before, have delayed development in the physical areas and motor skills, and the occupational therapist can help with that, and physical therapy as well.
And physical therapy might not be one that all children on the spectrum need, but some do if their gross motor skills are not as coordinated, which is common. But the most often you will see speech, you will see OT or occupational therapy, and you'll see a behaviorist involved. So it's a large treatment team that works with these children.
Mary, as you were going through there, you said speech language therapy is what I do. Would you elaborate on what you do on the speech therapy side?
Okay.
Because you're describing all the others, and
Yeah, and I didn't do that, did I? Thank you. When you're starting with the really young ones who aren't talking, you want to get them to engage. So it's play. It's play with the little ones. We'll start with, as the gentleman did, with the bubbles, or with something that the child is interested in. And you do some back and forth and back and forth. And this reminds me of one of my latest ones. He's the youngest of 3. And the first time I saw him, I was trying to get him to engage with me. And so we were playing, and I took the thing that he was playing with. And I was trying to get him to ask please, sign please, to ask please, to verbalize, to do something. And he got really ticked off at me. And finally he looked at me and he grabbed my hands and he said, give it back. And I thought, okay, you are the youngest of 3. So, but that's what you do. You try to do, you meet them where they are. Okay, I gave it back. He asked. I laughed at him and he didn't know why I was laughing, but I gave it back to him because he did what I asked him to do. So you start there, and then you start with pairing words with the action. Ball, we throw the ball, we catch the ball, we roll the ball, we bounce the ball, we blow bubbles, we rock the baby, feed the baby, play with the toys like they were doing in there. You have the pretend play, you have the tea party for the little ones. And then you ask for, or work into requesting, what do you want? What do you want? And they have to ask. It'll start with, for the nonverbal ones, it'll start with pointing or maybe gesture. This is the sign for give me or I want. So give me ball, give me whatever, or I want ball. A lot of times with these little kids who aren't verbal, you'll start with signing. And signing, whether they're on the spectrum or not, signing does something. It connects the connections in the brain, so that helps them with language. Excuse me. It also will cut down on tantrums for these little kids who are wanting to communicate but can't. And if you give them a way to communicate with signs, with symbols, with something, so they can tell their parents, they can tell their caregivers what it is that they want. Milk, juice, drink, eat, I'm hungry, I hurt. Just something that will help them communicate. Takes the pressure off. Okay? Okay.
I have a caveat down here. There's a lot of information out on the web about autism and about treatment and about supposed causes and supposed cures. Most of that is not research-based, so you have to be really careful. And a lot of it can actually potentially be very harmful. There have been children who have died because of some of these touted treatments out there. So it gets under my skin. It really does. I'm very passionate about this when I see touted cures out there in the industry, in the field. If you see that and you think, oh my goodness, this is the answer, take it with a grain of salt. Talk to your pediatrician. Look up the research. Talk to your treatment team. Please don't just jump in and say, I'm going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on something that might or might not work, or it might work but only make this much of a difference. And then if that little bit of a difference was worth all the appointments and all the treatments and all the money and the time and the energy that you've put into this versus doing something that we know that helps, like the ABA therapy and the speech therapy. We know that that helps. The research backs that up over and over and over again. So just being very careful and mindful of those things when you see them out there, because there is a lot of snake oil out there. So,
Yes, ma'am.
What's killed someone?
There has been things such as chelation therapy. So that's taking all of the minerals out of your liver and out of your body. Some people generally have higher levels of different toxins or different metals in their system, and they need that chelation therapy if their liver's not functioning well, right? But there have been people out there who've said this helps children on the spectrum and said they do chelation therapy, and there's been cases where children have not survived that. There's something out there called holding therapy. So basically we hold our child who's tantruming until they don't tantrum anymore. Some have suffocated. That doesn't help anything with the child to learn how to communicate. So it's just, you have to be careful. You really have to be careful. And stick to what we know.
Have you heard of the whole brain balance?
I know very little bit about it. I've seen things about brain balance. I've seen things about neurofeedback. I've seen stuff like that. The research has been up and down. So again, I go with what I know.
Yes, there is a lot of stuff out there. I went to an autism conference a couple of years ago now, and this was at a recognized autism conference with some very big names in the field there. And in the vendor section, there were several different things that may be helping some people, but very expensive. Music therapy. Well, I was thinking I might like that music therapy myself just to listen to, but I didn't buy it, and I'm not sure whether it would help. Hyperbaric pressure chamber? I don't know. Maybe it does help some kids. I don't know. But they're expensive.
Yeah.
So you just have to be careful.
I have seen parents go across the country to different doctors to get supplements and testing, and the yeast level was high and the mercury level's high and this level's high, and I don't even know what the baseline is for a normal person for those levels, and I don't even know if anyone knows what those baseline levels are supposed to be. But parents are going across the country trying to get these supplements and trying to get these different treatments and trying to get these different things out of their child's system. And to be honest with you, and this is just anecdotal, but the children that I have seen that have gone through that, always sick, always uncomfortable, tummy troubles all the time, and not really making a whole lot of progress. So again, stick with what you know.
I'd like to just add that, for me, it's, it's go to PubMed.gov, right? That's all the, every research-based,
Yes.
everything is there. For the CDC
Yes.
website. So, there's some very interesting things being done in Japan with oxytocin, oxycontin, the drug, oxytocin.
Yeah.
So there are interesting things being done.
Yeah.
But
Yes, but those are the, exactly, those are the websites you pay attention to.
Right.
Yeah, go
Right.
to PubMed, go to the CDC, go to NIMH.
And then take it to your doctor and
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not saying don't try these things. I'm just saying educate yourself and talk to the people in the field before you jump
Right.
to
Right.
cures.
Service dogs, I don't know why that came into my brain, but something else. Some people on the spectrum relate very, very well to animals. Others could not care less. It's just something else in the environment. So before you think about getting a service dog for your person with autism, try them out with different animals and see. Because service dogs are not cheap in the first place. It costs a lot of money to train a dog. And then, you know, if you're going to get a service dog that's been trained, if you're just getting a family pet, and there's somebody else who's going to be attached to this dog, okay. But be careful about service dogs too. Okay, yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you're going to touch on this later, because you're only in the beginning, but what if you miss early intervention? My son is 16.
It's harder. It is harder. It's the brain is more plastic when you're young. It's not hopeless. There's still things that you can do to help them. It's just it might take longer.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where. And if you don't want to waste
Yeah.
anyone's time, that's fine.
At the end, we go through a lot of the transitional and the older services. So if we could hold on that, but we'll definitely get to that.
But just to add too, Debbie, the lady who was going to be here to talk from the mother's point of view, I work with her son who was 27. He had work through the schools when he was younger, and he's had work as an adult. We're still seeing a little bit of progress now, but he's doing things now that he wasn't doing a couple of years ago, and he's 27.
Well, there's a good study on PubMed about how actually, about that,
Mm-hmm.
about
Yeah.
aging.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually, you know, the problems aren't as bad. Because,
Right,
my
right.
son's 23, he's getting his PhD.
Fantastic.
He'll be fine,
Yes.
because half the people in PhDs are on the spectrum.
Yes.
That's where they end up.
Yes.
Well, we're at Clear Lake, NASA.
Yes.
Okay, so what to look for in a program? Selecting the most appropriate intervention for an individual is complicated. So what you need to look for is evidence-based intervention. Are these people making progress? Does this program produce results? Professional judgment. Ask around. Who does your pediatrician recommend? Other people that you know? Autism Speaks is another good source that you can check on for facilities. Does the program have the same values and preference that your family has? I mean, that's something else. And then the capacity to accurately implement. They can come up with a great plan, but if they can't put it into action, it's a great plan.
There's no cookie cutter program, and a lot of programs out there try to be, and there's really not. It does have to be individualized to your child, to your adult. It does need to be individualized, but like in the world of ABA, the structure, the system, the treatment is the principles are the same, but it might look different for each individual that they're working with. And so that's what you want to see is not a cookie cutter, but it can be individualized based on these principles. And that you want to make sure that they can say that they've seen progress in their clients, that it's not, sure we can do it, but there's nothing to back that up. You want to see, and there's a lot of new places out there, so of course they don't have that reputation yet, and hopefully they're working on it, but those are the things that you want to look for, is that they can individualize, that they can pay attention to what you as a family are needing. Some families don't want to use food as reinforcers, so the therapist is going to have to find other things in food to reinforce the child for things that they're trying to get them to do. So just making sure that that therapist can make those accommodations and really meet you, not just your child, but meet the family where, meet you where you are too.
Go visit these places. And they should be open enough to let you come visit, or have some facility.
Yeah.
Some method, some means for you to visit the facility and see what goes on.
How do you ask them for evidence?
Well, most, if they're an ABA clinic, let's say, they're taking data on everything that they're doing. And if they're not taking data, they're not an ABA clinic. Okay? So you can ask them, say, I want to know how many kids through your program have made a successful transition to, whether it's back to public school or a half-day program or a day HAB program versus they're at an institution. What are their results? Granted, some children, no matter how much services that they get, they might still end up in an institution when they get older, but because everyone's different, their levels, their cognition, everything's different. But those are the things that you can ask for. Just show me the data. Tell me. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I think we're at a good spot for a break.